So this is lecture number 1 for the HTML and CSS class, and I know that some of you come from business backgrounds, and I know some are healthcare, or some of you might be engineering people who have never taken the opportunity to learn HTML or CSS, which is probably why you're in this course, perhaps. Don't know why you're in the course, but I'm going to assume you have absolutely no background in this subject area. So some of you who do have a background in the subject area are going to be extremely bored with this first lecture. So tune me out. Actually, you know what the interesting thing is? Sometimes I attend lectures on subjects I already know about, and then like I hear something, I go, "What? I never knew that." And I pick up one little thing. So if you can get one little, even if you're familiar with the basics, if you can pick up one little thing, it's probably going to be worthwhile anyway. So, but long story short, I have to cover some extremely low-level, foundational, kind of boring, basic material before we start writing any code. We can actually look at code samples today if we get that far. I see most of you brought your computers, which is really good. That was your assignment, was to get a text editor, get your system set up, which there's no software to install. We're going to do everything by hand. We might actually get there today, which is I'm hoping for. So what do we got? The goal is to understand hyperlinking, hypertexting, and understand what it is we're studying this course, understanding how tags are formed, understanding HTML as a markup language, and then understanding the role of the W3Cs as well, which is kind of where the trends are these days in terms of HTML. And as I mentioned before, HTML, also looking at XHTML. This is what I covered last week, actually. Also looking at HTML5. So I'm going to start in with basic HTML first, give you the foundational stuff, and then we'll progress forward into other types of extensions on the concept. So hypertext, HTML, if you don't know, stands for Hypertext Markup Language. And it's probably in here anyway. Well, it's probably in a couple slides here. I'll get to it eventually. But it's for presentation. So it is to display text in colors, in bold fonts and stuff. And it's a way of writing documents. So this is why you can't use things like Microsoft Word to write HTML files in it. And you can't use other types of processors, word processing programs. It's made for text and text in plain text documents. So it originally came around as a way of accessing documents on the internet. It's a document exchange protocol. And it works through HTTP, which is Hypertext Transport Protocol, which sends the HTML text along with scripting stuff. It's all text, actually. Sends it back and forth throughout the internet, as you know, probably familiar with, I hope. So accessing cross-references, documents called hypertext linking. So the concept is actually all linking oriented. One document can link to another document that can link to another document and so forth. Probably the most important aspect of the web because it allows quickly to open up other web pages. So we're all familiar with using the internet, I hope, and using what are you doing primarily on the internet? You're doing two functions, really, when you talk about the internet. From a traditional internet usage point of view, you're looking at HTML formatted documents. Every document that you're looking at is HTML formatted. Every single document, 110% of everything is HTML. You can't get past it. Even if you're writing things in JavaScript and you're writing things with PHP and Java and ASP, it's all HTML interface. That's why you want to take this class, because HTML. And if you're not doing that, you're checking email. You're using a different protocol. And email actually works with HTML as well. We have HTML formatted email now. No one writes text emails anymore. Now we have colors and pictures and all that stuff. All HTML. Most people figured this out when they started getting MySpace accounts. And they went, oh, HTML. Oh, so that's how you fixed up your MySpace page in the old days. And now we have more sophisticated stuff with Facebook. But long story short, if you know a little bit of HTML, you can use the tags and you can write some pretty cool stuff whenever it's supported, and it's supported everywhere. So we have the World Wide Web here with hypertext linking and what's called hyperlink, which is what the word for is. I'm giving you a bunch of vocabulary today as well. So hyperlink contains a reference to a specific web page that can link quickly when you open up the web page. That's how we navigate, actually. So you can't write an application in HTML. There's no functionality. It's static. It's what they refer to it as a static web page. if it just has HTML in it, because you're just looking at it. So it's just a document. The document on the web is called the web page. It's identified by a unique address or uniform resource locator. Most people know URLs because you can go type in www.google.com and you say, ah, that's just an HTML page. And actually you can view the source of that page and you can say, oh, it's nothing on there really. It's just the interface. URL commonly referred to as a web address. And actually we have a domain name lookup system because you don't actually have to type in www.google.com. You can type in the IP address. Because you're just going IP. Who's going to remember IP addresses? It doesn't work out that well. So, we have a domain lookup system that translates it all for us. So, makes it easier. URL is a type of uniform resource identifier. It's a generic term. Many types of names and addresses on the internet. As an example, we have URLs that go to .edus, .coms, .orgs. We have different branching. I'm not going to bug you or bore you in this class with URL IP addressing. If you take a networking course, you'll get IP addressing schemes. One thing I will mention about IP addressing, however, is that each section of the address means something. And it's associated with location and the size of the network. Some addresses actually work faster than others. I don't know what kind of network link they're on, actually. And we're going from IP4 to IP6, but we're still IP4 compatible. What does that mean? Well, addresses are just getting bigger. So it's actually kind of interesting how the addresses have gotten a lot larger. And if you think about it, maybe 10, 15 years ago, we didn't need as many. So now can you really find a device that doesn't use the internet? And they all need a separate unique address. Everybody's got a unique address for every device they're connecting to. So yeah, we're running out of addresses. So HTML documents. Originally, people created the web pages using a hypertext markup language called HTML. We're still doing it this way. So it's a simple language used to create web pages. It's a markup language. So it's a set of characters or symbols that define a document logical structure and how the document should be printed on the display. I'm kind of going through this a little bit faster. Let me know if I should slow down, but I'm going to assume some of this stuff is rudimentary. You guys are graduate students, so what doesn't really matter because you could be coming from a business field, or from healthcare, or from nursing, or who knows where you're from. But anyway, HTML is also based on an older language, so I'm going to slow it down a little bit and talk about dialects of HTML. So, standard generalized markup language SGML. It's an older language for which HTML was written from, which is kind of interesting. Because most people are like, oh, HTML, we're only on version 1 right now. It hasn't grown. Why break it if it's not broken? Now we have HTML5, excuse me, I should say of XML, we're on version 1. Of HTML, we're on 4, and now we have 5 that has just come out. Not to confuse you completely here. But HTML is sometimes mixed in with other technologies, which is kind of the controversy right now, is when does HTML stop and the other technologies start? Because we have XHTML, which is XML plus HTML. And the interesting thing is that CGML is the foundation for HTML. It doesn't include any of the XML, which is kind of a separate dialect. So this family tree on all these technologies is kind of dense. It kind of branched off, and now we're sort of going in one direction of the HTML route. Is what's going on right now. So it defines data in a document independently of how the data will be displayed. Well, nowadays we usually talk about XML doing that, because XML also came out of SGML. Originally, SGML did everything. All we did was took that and said XML, HTML. And we took XML and HTML, put it together, and called it XHTML, which is kind of weird. So what does HTML do? We know what HTML does. Actually, before I go back, we know what HTML does, hopefully right now. It gives us our presentation. XML defines our data that we're going to use inside of the presentation. We can use HTML without any XML. Don't need to use that at all. We can use XML without any HTML. So who uses XML? You don't see XML on a website. Although web browsers are compatible and you can view the code, and I'll show you how to do that in a few minutes. But actually you can use it with Internet Explorer. And most of you, I see, have Windows computers, so I have a Windows partition on this book, so I'll show you in Windows. But XML is for document exchange, banking systems, wire transfers, document invoices, sales, all the business-related stuff is all XML transported. You put it in an XML format, you send it from one computer to another computer. The destination computer figures it out. There's an XML parser that goes through and says, well, what is this thing? It reads it, but it reads it from a data perspective. It's not a mock-up perspective. So there's no color, there's no fonts or anything used in that. There's no presentation. So XML is basically just for data definition. Okay, so the target output format refers to the medium in which the document will be displayed, such as a web page, or as an online help system, or as, let's say, a banking system, a computer, an application that's going to read out would be considered a target output format. So we put it in XML to send it to a computer. We put it in HTML for a web browser. Your web browser is the parser. Your web browser is the interpreter. So we have a text file. We send it to any web browser you want. The web browser interprets it. So the first thing usually what people start figuring out, especially with the first assignment, is they write this beautiful HTML page and they load it up in Internet Explorer. And it looks different than when they load it up in Firefox or in Chrome. We have some browsers that support different formats. There's no compatibility and there's no standard to this, which is kind of interesting. Your Apple applications, your Apple programs, are going to use Firefox, and they're going to use Mozilla, or excuse me, Opera, well, it's not really around anymore, or Safari, which is also supported on your mobile devices, which is kind of interesting. So if you want to see what a mobile app looks like, bring it up in Safari on your computer. You can kind of see, especially if it's a mobile web interface, you'll see it, and it'll be functional. It won't be functional in Internet Explorer. So you'd think a web browser is a web browser? No, not quite. Web browsers are as different as applications out there. And usually your basic user, unfortunately your basic user ends up with Internet Explorer because they, they went to Fry's and they bought a computer and the computer had Windows 7 on it, because there's hardly very many computers that don't have Windows 7 on it. And in Windows 7 they give you Internet Explorer made by Microsoft. And you miss half of the world when you use that. You're missing out, essentially. So a lot of people download Firefox, and they put that on there, because Firefox works on all platforms. So I'll talk about browsers as we go through some of the differences with the DOM, so the DOM. I'll talk about that in a few minutes as well. DOM stands for Document Object Model, and so the document itself can be broken out into different components and have different hierarchies to the structure, and Microsoft has a slightly different DOM structure than other manufacturers of browsers. So, okay, so let's go back to HTML. So HTML has basic concept is the tag. So we're looking at tags, and what are the tags? Well, the tag is to display a web page. We have a start tag and we have an end tag. Start tag and end tag, and what I usually do at this point is start building a document. So let's see if I can get this thing to work. No, thing's not going to work. Oh, I should have made, here it is, here. It is slide number 14 it was on. So those people who have a computer, we can start building Hello World. So what you want to do is bring up a text document, and as I mentioned before, a nice little text document editor is Text Wrangler. You may also use, in fact, one of my YouTube users actually corrected me. There's a setting that you can do on text edit if you're on a MacBook. If you're not on a MacBook, use Notepad. If you're on a MacBook, you can use text editor. You just have to change it so it's not rich format, it's text format, and it's in the properties, actually. So, but I still like, if you want, just take a look at the first video from last week, and there's one of my YouTube users put a comment under, and I went, yeah, because I don't use text edit that much. I abandoned it as soon as it wasn't going to work for me on the first try. So, and then I went to something that was, I don't know, a little bit better. Here we go. So now I can multitask here. All right, so I'm opening up a program called Text Wrangler. It's a text editor. And I can zoom in here so I can kind of see what I'm talking about here. So every single HTML tag in the world has an opening bracket, and it has a closing bracket, and it has something in between. So those are the brackets I'm talking about. And in here I'm going to write the word HTML. If I put this is referred to as a start tab. Every start tab has an end tab. So the end tab for this is going to be the same thing as the start tab, HTML. But I'm going to put a line in there that says, oh, this is the end of this document, or this end of this tag set. So you notice I put some spaces in here, and I put some spaces in here, and I put some spaces in between here. Don't fear. I could have done this without any spaces at all. Could have put the entire document this way. Blank lines are ignored. So it has nothing to do with how I'm writing it in. It's how it's interpreted by the browser in terms of what it's going to look like. So if I do this, what I've basically told the browser is this is an HTML document. We have strict HTML code, and then we have non-strict HTML code. What does that mean? Well, strict is 100% compliant. So we have this organization called W3Cs, and they're looking for strict documents. And when I'm all done writing this beautiful document I'm going to write, I can send it to the W3Cs. I go to a website and say, hey, give me the file, or give me the website. And the W can grade me. The W3C is going to come back and say, hey, you're lousy. Or, hey, you're good. You got a strict document. It basically takes the documents, runs them through a series of tests to see, does all the opening tags, do they all have closing tags? Are you using the correct starter tag? Do you have the correct elements in here? As an example, you know, I put opening and closing HTML on here. And so, you know, do I have the correct internal tags? What are the internal tags? Well, it's kind of interesting. We have different things. We have like, and I'm writing these in capital letters, by the way, for illustrative purposes. You can actually write them in lowercase letters. So, for example, head and head are the same tag. However, if you're going to follow standards, you want to put them in capital letters. It doesn't really matter. You know, in fact, you know, B and B, capital B, are the same thing too. Which one's easier to see? Capital, usually. So, put things in capital letters. Just makes it easier to see. It's more compliant that way as well. So, why are we worried about compliance? Your web browser is reading this, and I mentioned it already. Well, we have different web browsers, and they read them in different ways. There are different people writing these programs that are interpreting this. So, web browser is going to take anything. You can leave off HTML if you wanted to. You can leave off everything. You can just put text in there. The web browser is going to read everything. Other programs may not do the same thing. What other programs do we have? Well, we have applications that read HTML. We have interpreters that read HTML. Imagine the web browser that's on your mobile phone, or the applications that are on your mobile phone. Well, you ever wonder why something looks weird? Well, it's probably because the HTML code isn't quite compatible, or isn't quite compliant, I should say. So it works, but it doesn't look so good. The other thing you're going to get with HTML is absolutely no error checking. So I can write a bad tag, and if I write a bad tag, in fact, I'm going to put a couple bad tags in here. I'm going to put in, I'm going to write something on the screen here, hello world. And I'm going to put a really bad tag in here. I'm going to call this one my bad tag. And I'm going to put some stuff in here. I'm going to say the bad tag. I'm going to even put a closing bad tag in here. Actually, I'm going to cut and paste my bad tag. And, oops, copy, paste. Now you'll find out throughout this course I'm a terrible typist. So. And then I'm going to save the document, and I'm going to run the document. We'll see what happens when we put a bad tag in there. I'm not going to get any error checking. The bad tag doesn't exist, by the way. There's no such thing as a bad tag. So I'm going to save this document. Save as. I'm going to put it on the desktop. You could do the same thing if you want to and experiment with this. I'm going to call this hello world.html. And most people wonder, well, what's the difference between .html and .htm? Nothing. Which one's more compliant? .html. Why do we get .htm? Well, you guys remember Windows? Yeah, 3 digits. That's it. The file name, is it limited? It's 7.3 is the file naming convention. HTML is 4. So on Windows systems, you had to do this because otherwise the file system on the Windows platform wouldn't recognize it. Well, that's not a file. The naming convention says 7.3. 7 meaning this has to be a maximum of 7 characters. Let me zoom this in so you can see what I'm talking about. How many I got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, which means that's how long my word could have been in the old original Windows system. In the old original Windows system, my file name would have looked like that. So that wouldn't have been too good. So anyway, the normal world, everybody else in the world who doesn't use a 7.3, well, now we have extended in Windows, so you can put spaces in there, you can do all sorts of stuff now. The world's changed, so we can go and we can use real stuff. So here, real words. So I'm going to use the standard. So you'll see a lot of older documents with a .htm on them. You'll see a lot of people that go, oh, I like HTML, I don't want to put HTML on there. No problem, except for the fact that you will run into situations where you're not compatible, you're not compliant, although it works. So, okay, so I'm going to save the document. Now I've got the document saved, I've got the document opened. And the document's right here, so if I double click on the document, look at that, it opened it up in Firefox. It already knew what it was. It opened it, I double clicked on it. Now I have hello world. What does it say? Well, oops, let me go over here because it's way over here. It says, hello world, this bad tag, which was the start tag. Where's the end tag? Shouldn't it say this bad tag twice? No. On some let's see what I have here actually. This is oh, I only have the same, I don't have Internet Explorer on here. I have a Windows partition, however. Let me open up Windows so you can see, because I believe Internet Explorer will put both of them in there, but we'll see what happens. This is kind of like a test. I haven't actually done this. I haven't tested it, but in a long time. In the old days, oops, we don't want this. Don't show this anymore. Do I want to upgrade? So for those people who have MacBooks who are interested in switching over from a Windows system to a Mac system, you can always go backwards. I do this for teaching purposes because sometimes you want to see it done in a Windows system. And for this class in particular, the effects of the browsers are a lot different. But I can't run, and I refuse to load an Internet Explorer on my Mac partition. So I have Windows for other things too. So this program is called Parallels, not to give it a sales pitch. But you buy Parallels, it's like $50, and then you install operating systems inside of Parallels. It's a virtual machine environment. And then you can switch back and forth and run multiple operating systems on the same computer. A lot of development people do this for testing, especially, let's say, for example, you're going to write a website. You can't just test it on a MacBook. You only got half the population there. Or you can't just test it on a Windows system. You only got half the population. You have to really test it on both. I also have 2 different Linux breeds on here as well, so I can test it on Linux systems. So let's see, I'm going to close this document here, and I'm going to drag it over to my Windows partition. Hello, there it is. And now let's see, it's Internet Explorer. I've got the little icon here, picks it up as Internet Explorer. I'm going to double click on it. And what do I get? Probably the same. The same, yeah, okay. In the old days, it used to show both, actually. Yeah. But, alright, so, well, confirmed it. It's the same behavior, but I'm going to leave this open because we're going to see other stuff that might look differently, actually. So, and I'm kind of deviating from the lecture because the lecture is kind of boring PowerPoint. So what I'm going to do when I'm all done playing around here for a few minutes is I'm going to go back to the lecture and see what I missed. But this is more exciting, I think. I don't know, I'm watching a bunch of PowerPoint. But I am covering the PowerPoint, don't worry about it. I'm just doing it in a different way. Alright, so let's go back to this. So it identified, because it only showed up once, this is actually more compliant. Older versions of browsers didn't actually follow this. This is XHTML standard that says if you've got a / there, it's a closing tag. And it actually didn't read the tag in this particular case because what I did, and this is kind of a bad practice here, I put the tags in, but the tags didn't do anything, but I wrote the same name, this bad tag. So if I put something else in here like this is a test, I'm going to see this as a test written on the screen, and oops, not save as. Let's just cancel it here. Hold on one second. I was just going to quickly do it. Save. Where'd it go? Oh, there it is. It's still out here. And it says this is a test now up here. But it didn't put it on a separate line and put it right next to it, which is another lesson to be learned here. If the tag's not recognized, the tag's just ignored. So it wasn't actually the tags that were showing up on the screen, not to, because I think I caused some confusion in myself actually. It's not the tags that are going to appear. The tags are just garbage. The XML, excuse me, HTML code that is interpreted by the browser, the tags are never displayed, even if it's a bad tag. Now, if I write a tag that doesn't have an opening and closing bracket, this particular case, if I leave out this, what I'm doing right now is making a typo. You can easily tell typos because if I leave that tag out right there, leave out that, excuse me, the bracket, take the bracket out so it's a malformed tag. You see in my text editor, which is the reason why I like Text Wrangler, by the way, text edit is not going to highlight in blue the tags. This is highlighted in blue, so I can easily see it. So Notepad's not going to highlight either. So, and there are text editors for Windows that will do the highlighting for you. There's a ton of them out there. So if you're interested, just do a Google search on it. I'm not gonna research any of that. Oh, that's the same one that was out there before. Let me save it. Okay, what I'm also demonstrating to you is also twofold. I'm demonstrating how you're going to write stuff in this class. What you're going to do is you're going to pull up a text file like I've done here, and you're going to save it occasionally after you put some stuff in there, and then you're going to double click on the file and you're going to run it to see what the effect is. If you don't do this like an iterative kind of way, you end up writing the whole thing and then you go, how come it's blank? Very hard to troubleshoot it that way. So you write it in pieces, which is sort of like what I'm doing right now. So now you can see, because I've left out the bracket, now we can see, well, now it just printed it to the screen. But it didn't print out the one that had the both matching sets of the bracket because that's a tag. That's not a tag, that's a malformed tag. A malformed tag. So you might have this in your website, actually, because you are typing it by hand and you accidentally leave out a bracket. And the W3C is going to come back and say, you have 5 malformed tags. That's what a malformed tag looks like. It's missing. It's malformed, not formed correctly. Okay. So let's go back to, let's go back. Let's write some more HTML code. I'm going to take out this bad tag and I'm going to change it with, actually I'm going to take out this line completely and I'm going to leave hello world on there because I'm going to reuse it in a second. And I'm going to show you the body parts. So this is the typical HTML body. What's the body? Well, it's what's contents, different sections of your HTML document. If you ignore the body, then you don't know where to put stuff. So think of this sort of like an outline for your document. So we always start out with HTML, and I'm going to show you a different kind of, some variations. We could put a document type up at the top. And if we did that, we could specify what kind of document. We're not quite there yet. I'm going to save that for another lecture, maybe next week. We know it's HTML, so we got opening and closing HTML. We can embed this here inside of a PHP file, inside of a Perl file. Every time we put an opening HTML, closing HTML, say, hey, we're telling the browser, hey, this is HTML code, just read it like HTML code. Okay. We have the head. And we're going to have a head closing tag. And we only have one other section, the body. So we have body. And then we have a closing body tag. Body tag. Not bad, right? Oh, okay, thank you. See, I told you I was a terrible typist. Where is this? Well, it's outside of the body tag. It's still going to work. It's just going to, in fact, if I do this, save it. And say, well, is it going to work? I don't know. I'm kind of worried. Let's see if it's going to work. Oh, that's the other thing, too. If you already have it up and you look at it, it's not going to change. If you refresh it, it's going to change. But it may not necessarily change as reliably as closing it and opening it up again. So hello world still shows up. Okay, so we didn't really do anything with it. If I put hello world in the proper place, however, and I want to put hello world on here, I want to put it in between the body tag. The body of your document is going to show up within the body tag. The main focus is to populate the body tag with your web page. What's going to show up in the head tag stuff, you're going to tell the browser. Are you using a scripting language? And we're going to be using a scripting language, JavaScript, pretty soon, after we get through with HTML. Do we want to set the title? So I'm going to put here title. T-I-T-T, is it title? T-I-T-T-T-L-E? No, it's T-I-T-L-E. I told you I was terrible. You have to help me with my typing. Did I spell it right? One T. Oops, not an equals. T-I-T-L-E? Well, let's see if it works. This is my, I'm just going to do it in caps. This is my first HTML doc ever. Title. I just put a little space in here. I like to put spaces and stuff. Don't ask me why. Where's my little, here it is right up here. This is the title of the document. So if I loaded this document in Firefox, it shows up here on the tab. So if I loaded it also in Internet Explorer, it's going to show up in the bar. So, in fact, it just takes 2 seconds to do it. So I'll just do it. Usually it takes 2 seconds if I load it in the correct, if I press on the correct stuff. Now it says this is my first HTML doc. It's in the, this is what's called the title bar. All right, so it's a tab in Microsoft, in Firefox, because we don't have a title bar. So it's interpreted by the browser differently to show up. We don't have tabs in this here. Actually, how did I get this menu? Oh, I got a plug-in somehow in here. Okay, so. And it knew it was a title. So if I take this title out of here, and I put it in the body, and I save the document, and I load the document back up, I still see it. You know why? Because the browsers are compensated for my lack of ability to program correctly, and have interpreted it no matter where it was. Okay, so browsers, the only thing you really have to worry about with the head, the body, is that anything scripting won't work unless you put it in the head. Everything else works everywhere. In fact, you can leave out the head and the body, the whole thing will work just fine. You can leave out HTML, the whole thing will work just fine. Because browsers have compensated for people's lack of ability to remember and understand HTML. So it still works. However, if you want to look good on your job, do it properly, and people go, oh, you've taken an HTML class. You know what you're supposed to do. Oh, this doesn't go down in the body, this goes up here. It's supposed to go right here. Alright, so let's go through, I'm just going to hit some common HTML tags, which some of you may or may not be familiar with, and then eventually when I'm going to run out of some tags, I'll go back to the PowerPoint and pick it up where I left off. But we know if we put some stuff here, this is, let me take the caps off here, this is some stuff that I like to write in my HTML page. It's just some random, oops, let's see, I can't read here, let's go like this, random stuff that looks good. Okay, here is some more stuff, just put some stuff in there. In my random stuff, in my random stuff. Enough stuff. Okay. The end. And if I save the document here, and I open it back, hey, that's not what I wanted it to look like. All right, so then we have to fix it. Well, how are we going to fix it? This is where the formatting tags come into place. So you see, I have. Well, do I really want it to be down one? Okay, so we have P. Everyone, so this is going to refresh everybody's memories here. P. Well, what does P do? And I'm going to use capitals. You know, P is an interesting tab. P is an interesting tag because you don't have to put in old style HTML. You don't have to put a. It's called a terminated. P just gives you a new paragraph. So does BR. So BR is a line return. So let's see what the difference is between P and BR is. Well, BR actually puts 1 space in. P puts 2 spaces in. So if I want 2 spaces here, then I go P. And if I put P in here, then I've accomplished the task of separating out the paragraphs. P stands for new paragraph, by the way. Now I have new paragraphs. If I say, well, I just want this not to be a new paragraph, but I want it to show up on a new line, if I put BR, it's break. Line break. Yeah. Why do they call it BR, LBR? Line break. LB. Line break. LB. There we go. Don't know. BR. Let's do that one. If I do that one, looks like this. Oh, so no 2 spaces, just 1 space. Okay. So then I go, well, what's wrong with this? You'll see a lot of people doing this. Save it. What did I do? I just put a / in there. A / before it. And I say, well, it gives me the same effect. I don't have to put the / in there. But if I want to be XHTML compatible, I put the / in there, because if it's an opening and a closing together, it's just the closing. So you'll see a lot of people will put the B, and I have a bad habit of, not really bad habit, but I just have a habit of doing that. So when I looked at that immediately, I went, oh, there's something wrong with that. However, that's perfectly fine as well. You'll see some variations in styles. People start typing stuff. This is more compatible with parsers, because we know we're going to stop at the end. If we have an opening and we don't have an ending, but this is one of those tags that doesn't have an opening and an ending. It just has one tag associated with it. Another common one here, and I'm going to replace this one with an HR. It stands for horizontal rule. So if I put in HR and then I put in HR, I should have 2 horizontal rules. Let's put some stuff in here. Some stuff. I should have 2 horizontal rules, maybe. Because I put 2 tags in there, but I only have 1. Actually, I think I'm only going to have 1 in the Internet Explorer too. In the old days, we had 2. But then the browser said, hey, wait a minute. Yeah, I know, you're just having an opening and a closing. Let's just do 1. So the browser's thinking for me. Unfortunately, that's going to be your worst nightmare. The browser's going to think too much for you. And then you're going to put something, no, I want it that way. No, I want it that way. I want 2 lines in there. I can't do it like that. Because if I want 2 lines, well, I could just do this if I wanted to. Take this guy out. And if I did this, and then I saved it, what's going to happen? Let's see what's going to happen with that. Oh, I don't get anything. Alright, so that's not going to work. And what I'm demonstrating to you is a little bit of inconsistency in the rules. The /P works just fine. That /HR did not put a horizontal rule on my document. But this one will. Well, how come that works and the / doesn't work? And then how come I only get 1 when I put 2 of them in? And then I go, well, that's not, I'm demonstrating a point. It's not consistent. It's like the worst thing in the world. You'd think that the rules would apply to all cases. And it sort of does, which is what the W3C is trying to do. Trying to give people, like, just do it this way. And it can tell you whether you're doing it this way. It's going to work regardless. This is a perfectly, both of them are good solutions. But it's not going to necessarily work in every future application. So HTML documents, as they were originally produced, were supposed to be long-lived. It's like publishing. You're documenting something, you're putting it out there on the internet for everybody to see. It's supposed to survive generations and generations. So W3Cs came around and said, well, let's make it survive, make it consistent, make people do the same things. Because it's not a standard language. It's not really considered a programming language either. It's a markup language. So it doesn't really fit into any kind of standardization anywhere. So if I wanted to, and remember before that stuff didn't work. Well, now we know why the 2 lines didn't work. It didn't work because of that / in front of the HR. So this one here will work now. I have 2. I just put another one in there. Now I'm going to have 2 lines in here in between the paragraphs. Everything works just fine. If I stuck this over here, I'd have the same effect. Now I should have a double line if I do that. So this is basically going to stick it in wherever I put the whatever I put the tag in. So no double line. Now there's a double line. There's one before and there's one after. So there's a double line in here. It's just hard to see it. So that's the other thing too. You look at it and you go, I wanted 2 lines next to each other. If I want 2 lines next to each other, then I got to take this stuff out in the middle here. That should give me 2 lines next to each other. See if it's going to work. And now I have 2 lines next to each other. So that's why I type a little bit, I save it, I go over and I test it. You don't have to load this on a website. You don't have to do anything with it. This is how you're going to be working in this class. So, all right, so we covered that pretty well. We got the HR down. Horizontal row puts a line across it. We know that we can use BR for line break. But did I have to put a BR here? No. Okay. We have other ones for head. We have color. We have font. We have all bunch of tags, which I'm going to go through today. I'm going to go back to the PowerPoints here. And then I'm going to go through it next week as well. It's about 2 weeks of tags. No one's going to ever memorize all these tags. Your job is to kind of get an idea. What can I do? As an example, I can put in here, you know, UL. It stands for underline. And then over here I can say, well, I want to stop the underlining right here. So I put in the /UL. What you're trying to get at it today is the format of what you're doing. And then let's say I want to put a B in here for bold. B stands for bold. And you notice I just switched now. I'm using lowercase instead of uppercase. Bad practice. So do as I say, not as I do, or whatever that word is. B for bold. And what do we got? I for italics. And, oh my god, there's like hundreds of them. So if I save this now, what am I going to get? I'm going to get, this is bold. It's hard to see it, but it's bold. And underline, well, I put an underline next to, oh, UL. Oh, you're right. What is the tag for underlining? It's what? I'm using the wrong line. That's unordered list. Yeah. What's underlining? U for underline. So you guys know more than I do right now. It actually illustrates a point. What's the point? No one memorizes these tags. I don't have these tags memorized. Are you kidding me? Hardly any new tags come up though. It's my bad for using an unordered list instead of an underline. Nah, there's the underline. Underline works. Okay, good. All right, so back to the focus here. All right, so what you've just seen is what's called inline tagging. So, because today's about terminology as well. This is actually what's called sloppy HTML. Sloppy for many reasons. Because instead of like coming up with what's called a style sheet, or using a style associated with the document, I've embedded the tags inside of the document. This is just one line of text. I could put in like hundreds of different lines of text in here. In fact, I can have an entire document, and inside of the document I can put all these little tags and mixed in with the text. And then if I want to change something, I go back to the document. I go, where's that line where I put the UL instead of the U in there? Oh man, where is it? And then I get harder to work with. And then the boss comes back and says, you know what? We don't want to use bold anymore. Nothing in your document should be bolded. Then you got to go through and search all the bolds and take all the bolds out. Or better, it usually comes in fonts or colors, you know, and then it's harder to change the document. Plus, what if I'm working for a company and this is only one document of several different documents that we're going to put on our website, and the boss comes in and says, hey, you know what? We should all be consistent. We should all use the same fonts. So what? And then you got to go in the document, you got to change all the fonts. Nobody does it this way anymore. This is nice if you're going to write like a little text message that you're going to send to somebody, and you're going to like, oh, let's make it, you know, flashy, you know, and let's add some stuff to it. Or you're creating a MySpace page or something, or you're doing something where it allows you to write in some HTML code. This works just fine. What we're going to do in this class is come up with what's called style sheets. Style sheets are going to have all this stuff in there. So we can define, what does the style sheet do? It takes the tags and defines characteristics for the tags, and then we define components in the document usually using, we have, okay, so these are markups, right? We have other tags like the div tag. Ooh, that says, well, what is that? Well, it's defining divisions and sections of the particular document that's going to be formatted differently. So we want, this is the body, so we want to have it, you know, double spaced, and we want 10 times font, and, you know, times Roman, and blah, 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 right? Well, we don't want to do it for every single document, so we come up with one text file called the CSS, which is called CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. We put it in a document, or a text file. We put the text file on the site. We tell the documents, each document that we create, use this document, use the style sheet. And then we take and we apply the style sheet. So when someone wants to change the style, the boss says, you know what, we don't want bold anymore. We don't want bold to be this dark. We want bold to be lighter. Bold. I don't know if you can change the contrast of bold, but if you could, it'd go into the CSS. And then everything that was using the CSS would reflect this change. So in theory, that's where we're going to. However, there's many different ways of doing CSS. And they call it cascading. And because up here, and we'll, not today, but we'll look at how to actually use CSS. You can make it for the document, you can put it in a file, or you can put it in the document. So the concept is not as standardized as you might think it should be at this point. Most people who are doing website development projects are going to work with, someone's going to hand you a CSS probably, because a web developer, unless it's a brand new project just starting out and you don't have anything, then you're going to create the CSS first, probably. And otherwise, you're going to be handed a CSS. You're going to say, hey, all of our indented lists look like this. Okay, all of our body dividing body sections look like this. Okay, and then you put the divs in there. You identify different parts of the document, and you apply the style to different parts of the document. And you say, well, I have a new one here. And then you update the CSS to add that in. So anybody else who uses it, all documents share the same CSS. Everybody uses it. Or if you have something that's just going to be particular to this document, you don't have to update the CSS. You just put it in here. And there's no rule or law that says you have to use the CSS. But if you want your documents to look like all the other documents out there and have the same formatting to it, then you're going to go the CSS routes. But we're gonna do it the bad way first, so you can learn the tags, and then as soon as we get the tags underway, then we're gonna look at the CSS. So what we've got here is the basic structure. All your documents, hopefully they won't look this sloppy, but they're gonna look like this. You're gonna save it. So we're done with this kind of thing. So I'm gonna save it. Then I'm gonna leave it. If I were to do something with this, as an example, I'm gonna upload it to a website. If I upload it to a website. Actually, let me upload it to a website. I'm going to upload it to bhacker.com. I'm going to put it in the main directory. You don't have to do this for this class. I'm going to connect. This is a program. This is a free FTP program. FTP stands for File Transport Protocol. It's used to upload your files to the internet, because some people I know are not coming from a computer science background or business background. So I'm going to go through everything here. We'll have a little bit more on FTP technologies and stuff like that, and tools and stuff as we go through the course. But I just want to show you how I'm going to make this lovely document that I created live. So this is my directory. This is where, when we type in www.bhacker.com, it goes to my index.html page, which loads up automatically. I'm going to go through that a little bit more in detail as well as we go through the course. You see all this stuff out here? This is all this stuff. That's this stuff. And it's actually in an ITU directory, so out here I have a directory, and it's automatically feeding to there. I'm going to take this document here, here it is, hello world.html, I'm going to drag it in here, I'm going to stick it in my home directory. Now I'm going to go to my web browser, this is how fast it is actually, and I'm going to type in, what did I call it, hello world? I have to get it correct though, hello world.html. Ah, there's my lovely page, and it's live to the world. Although I'd hate anyone to go to this URL, but if you want to, from your computer, you can, and you'll see there's my, oops, where'd it go? This is my first HTML document. It still has my title up here. So now you see it's loading from hello world.html, it's loading from bhacker.com, and it's live. This is called publishing. I have now published it to the world. Although, I'm going to be Well, I'll leave it up there, but eventually I'll go through. Occasionally I go through and clean stuff out. It'll probably get cleaned out as we go through. You don't have to do that for this course, because you can possibly imagine, here, let me disconnect actually. Possibly imagine how difficult that might be, because you might have to subscribe to a web space. There's some free stuff. Probably not next week, the following week. Maybe as soon as next week I'll go. I have a list of this free stuff, but you can go out there and explore it as well. You'll get different tools to use with some of the free services. Sometimes you can't connect with an external FTP program. You have to actually use their tools. And they're going to stick a bunch of ads and stuff on your pages that are going to happen automatically. So that's what you get for it being free. So this is actually a GoDaddy web page. If you're interested, not to give them a plug, but I should give them a plug. I'll give them a plug here real quick. GoDaddy. There we go. They've been around. The reason why I like GoDaddy is they've been around for centuries. The problem with web hosting companies is they come and go. When they go, so do you. You're not live anymore. These guys have been around since like one of the first ones that came out. So I know they're not going anywhere. They're a pretty huge company. And I don't have to move my stuff around. I can just stay with them forever. And I'm only paying like maybe $10, $20 for every 6 months. Even by a yearly account for like $50. You can get 12 months out of it. And they do the web hosting for me. It's called the web hosting company because they give me the space. And it's shared on their server with a lot of other companies. So if you're looking for a good company that's been around for years, GoDaddy's, and they have really good support actually. They actually answer their telephone and stuff. A lot of the cheaper companies say, oh, I can get a website for $5. $5 a month, which is actually kind of expensive. If you're going to do that, you can get a website for $5 a year if you're that price conscious. For 99 cents a year or something. Or you can get one for free. Problem is, though, are you going to have a telephone number to call, first of all? And are they going to answer the phone? And what happens if your website goes down? And you're running a business from your website, and it's not there anymore. That's what you get for 99 cents a year. So, anyway, my point is go reliable. GoDaddy is cheap and reliable, actually. A lot of companies are actually using it. I used to have my own web server, and then my computer died. Then I moved it up to GoDaddy. I went, why in the world was I doing this myself? Just have GoDaddy do it. And then they also give you access to certain things like a PHP. And, you can get a web with GoDaddy. You can get a web account, or you can get a Linux account, and you have different sets of tools. And I'll be going through the tools as we go through the course. But let me go finish up the PowerPoint here where I left off. So we have opening and closing tags. So that's what I showed you. The brackets. Excuse me, not the opening and closing. I showed you the bracket concept, which is what you're looking at here. So the tags are enclosed with these brackets, most consistent with the starting tag and an ending tag, surrounded by text in between. So this is a kind of a list here. It comes out of an old textbook. Actually, I can't remember the name of the book. Where you can see kind of a list of the common ones: centering, head, headings. I haven't gone through the headings and the sizes yet, but the concept of HTML starts and ends HTML documents. And this is where you're going to end up, if you get a, and I have no book assigned for this course, by the way. I do it on a purpose because it's senseless. You can't learn this from a book, first of all. Second of all, the book's going to be, different for every person. If I were to buy a book for this course, I'd get like a book that had this stuff in it. Give me the tags. In fact, that's what I need the most. I don't need to remember those tags. Do I really need to remember them? Not really. I need a book. So when I'm writing a document, it's like any programming language as well. If you start getting into programming, you're not going to get a book that's going to teach you how to program it. You're going to get a book that's got a list of all the functions or all the method calls, and it's going to be indexed. So you can go to the index and say, I need to highlight. Okay, well, how do I highlight? Oh, here we go. Page 99. Okay. And it tells me the tags. I don't want all the reading and all that other stuff. I just want the tags. So the basic HTML tag, it opening and closes the document, and there are important HTML tags inside of it, like head and bodies we've seen so far. The head tag contains the information used by the web browser. Web browser looks in the head tag. As we just saw, it looks elsewhere too. But it's traditionally supposed to be looking in the head tag. Scripts that you put in the head will work. Scripts that you don't put in there, that you put in the body, are not going to work. So that's the distinction there is with scripts these days. So it's placed in between, so they're nested. All these tags are nested, by the way, in terms of how they're being assembled. So the head tag pair and the tags it contains are referred to as the document head. So this document head, followed by the body, contains the body, document body. And the different parts of the document are in the document object model. So this is sort of the foundational material. Although it sounds pretty easy, and it is easy, but it's how we make up the structure in terms of the formalization of it. The body tag and the text inside of the tags it contains is referred to as the body, document body. Web browsers process and assembles the formatting of the HTML document is called parsing or rendering. I use the word parsing. There's another breed of people that like to use the word rendering. When I think of rendering, I always think of graphics. I don't really think of parsing. I don't really think of reading a file. Various different parameters called attributes. So those are attributes, or the parameters that configure many of the different tags. What are attributes? Well, we didn't look at attributes yet. I haven't shown you an attribute. And most people go, yeah, you have, it's a body. Those are tags, by the way. An attribute would be font space color equals red. Color is an attribute. Font, and it's actually, I still got the document out here, so I'll just, oops, no, I moved the document. Here it is. So let me just show you real quickly, because sometimes it's better to see it. So these are tags. In here, I'm going to use another tag, and it's going to be font. That's actually a complete tag, but what does it do? Nothing. But if I said font color equals red, that's going to do something. This is what's called the attribute. So each one of the tags, some of them have attributes, some of them don't. So if I did that, and if I'm back over here, I can do a shortcut, and I just want to close the tag. So I go font. Closes everything associated with the tag. So if I did here size as another attribute equals 10, then I'm going to have, what's that going to look like? Well, it's going to close both the size, and it's also going to close the color, and it's going to look like that. My stuff in my random stuff is now red, and it's now in a different size font. So these are referred to as the attributes. Also, you may have noticed I did something interesting here that I can undo, actually. I can take out these quotation marks. If I take out the quotation marks, it still works. But this isn't considered XHTML compatible. This is considered sloppy. So it still works, though. But it should, all your attributes, the data that you assign to an attribute should always be enclosed. This is a number, and I did this on purpose to show you this is a number, this is text. It doesn't matter what it is. All of the data that you assign to attributes for tags should be in quotation marks. Why? Because some parsers read that as, oh, attribute value, attribute value. And if this comes in a parser that doesn't know that this is an attribute that equals a value, these are really referred to as the values, then it might misinterpret that. Firefox isn't going to misinterpret it, so it's still going to work. So I took out the quotation marks on that. It's still going to be big when I run it. It's still, see, yeah, here it is. It's still going to be big. It's still going to look just fine. But technically that should have quotation marks around it. Anytime you have an attribute, no matter what the attribute's doing, the data value that you assign to it should be in quotation marks. So, why does it need to be in quotation marks? To follow compliance. Why do you want to follow compliance? Because future, 25 years down the road when everything is read differently by different programs, how do you know if your website's going to look the same? Well, the reality of the fact of the whole matter is nothing stays for 25 years. Technology just grows so fast. In fact, 25 years from now, we probably won't even have HTML. We'll have something else. But you always run that risk. So actually, if I send a document to W3Cs to validate it, if I leave out the quotation marks around those values, it's going to come back with it's not going to come back with malformed. It's going to say I'm non-strict. If I'm strict, which means I've strictly followed all of the rules and I'm compliant, then I've done everything correctly. If I'm not, then it means I've done something wrong, and it's going to pinpoint, it's going to tell me everything I did wrong with that document. So, actually, now that I've been talking about it so much, I might as well just show you what I'm talking about. So I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but it makes it more interesting. I don't have the URL for it because I'm jumping ahead. I'm just kind of doing this on the fly, but W3C Validator. So I just opened up Google and I searched on W3 Validator. So I'm going to go, okay, search on that. And here we go. Okay, so the URL is validator.w3.org. Because I'm really concerned about my Hello World program. I don't know if it's compatible or not, so I really, before I publish it to the world, I want to make sure I'm following the standards correctly. So I'm going to say, here I'm going to put an address. I'm going to go ahead and here, http://www.bhacker.com. I uploaded it. But I have two different versions of it now. I have one with the attributes done incorrectly, and one. I think the one I have up here should be okay though. Let's see. I think I did everything right. So what was it called? Hello world.html. Also, another thing you're looking at here is another thing I probably should explain, especially if you're new to science. If you're new to, I don't know how to call this programming, but this is called camel casing. So the first character of the word, there's no spaces allowed, by the way. In Windows, everyone put my space documents, program space files, and we got all used to those bad habits of using space. Don't put a space in a URL, in a name of a document that you're going to upload to a website. No spaces. It doesn't work. So if you don't have spaces, how am I going to put two words in there when you capitalize the first character, the second word? And you put them together, you scrunch them all up. Some web servers have a limitation of 11 characters. Some of them, if it's old server, you might have to truncate the name of the word, of the document, actually. So don't go elaborate with the length of the name either. Make them short. So we get into bad habits when we start using Windows. All right, so I put the URL in here. I'm going to press on the check button here. I'm going to see what happens here. 4 errors and 4 warnings. I guess I wasn't as good as I thought I was. So I'm going to scroll down to the notes. So what it's done is it's told me, where's my reading here? I'm transitional. So errors found while checking the document as HTML 4.01. It says I'm transitional, which means I'm halfway there. I just haven't made it yet. I'm not compliant, but I'm getting there. I'm transitional, which means I'm not strict. I want to come back with strict. So I'm going to go through formally, and I have a lecture for this, but I'm just jumping ahead a little bit to show you what I'm talking about to illustrate a point. I have no character encoding found. Yeah, I left off at the beginning of the document. I didn't tell it that it was an HTML 4.01 document. Uh-oh. And I didn't tell it that it was even a document. I don't have a document type tag in there at the top. But I did start out with HTML, unable to determine the parse model. Oh, I also didn't say that it was a MIME text document either. Also, it's having a problem with my doc type. No doc type found. All right. So all of these problems are related to the fact that I didn't put a doc type in that document. So if I fix that error, it's probably going to come back with, okay, so what did this say? Validation output. There's 4 errors in here. No document type declaration implying, so it implied this. So I can actually cut and paste that and put it at the top of my document and fix that error. End tag for a P, which is not open. Oh, so I put a P in here. I have an end. So I could have left out the closing and then had just put in the opening because it's an end tag. I don't actually need it in there. But I'm like from the traditional breed of model thinking where I want to have a matching set. Alright, so I can fix that. So what ends up happening is you'll see yeah, here's another one that's not open. So it doesn't like my closing. On my end, it doesn't like my closing bracket is what it doesn't like. Which means this. It means if it's, and I'm going to go through this in the lecture. I just haven't gone there yet. Oops, don't want that. I want open with. Now, does my document work? Yeah. If I liked it, I could leave it out there and it would work just fine. Nobody's going to notice any of these problems. But it doesn't like this ending here. Okay, so it's telling me, I think I cut that already. It's telling me that up here I should put a document type in here. Oops, that's not what I wanted. I thought I cut it out of the, maybe I didn't press cut. Up here, copy. Oops, wrong one. Up here it said, okay, I had to put this up here. Well, actually that's not going to be right. I just put, actually I'm going to leave it out because I'm not going to put the parameters in there that are necessary. Here I could take out this guy here. It doesn't like these guys. Okay, you know. I could edit the document and then resubmit it and then see if these errors are gone. So what this is doing in theory is telling me that I'm not so compliant. I'm transitional. Transitional means you're okay, but you're not there. You're not 100%. You're not strict. If you're strict, you've done everything correctly. What we want to be is strict, because that tells us that we followed and we're compliant, essentially. All right, there's other ways of actually, instead of having it on a URL, you actually submit the file. You upload the file. There's different features of this website to validate from anything. So you don't have to have it published on the internet somewhere to have it read. But I just thought I would show that to you, just because I talked about it already. We'll have a drill. In fact, what you can do for all of your assignments for this course is run them. If you want to see, am I turning in something that's good, just do what I just did, but upload the file instead of mentioning a URL. I just want to check the time, 11:15. Good. For those of you who came in late, we're probably going until about noon. So we got about. Actually, where's my TA? Can you tell me when it's 11:45? Okay, just like go up like this. Okay, good, perfect. Because when I put this on, I lose my clock, and there's no clock in this room. I certainly don't want to keep you guys longer than I need to. Because I'm starting to get hungry already. That's why I said 11:45. Some of this stuff gets kind of boring after a while, though. So, all right. All right, so the document, hey, we're going to get through this, though. Parsing. Attributes is where I stopped on the lecture, so we know that those are called attributes, and it configures many of the HTML tags, so color, size, or attributes related to font. Place the attribute before the closing tag. You can have as many as you want, and they go in the starting tag. And remember, the closing tag I just did /font. You just close the tag, but you don't have to close all of the attributes. Sometimes I see it written that way. I see /font space color is equal to this color, size is equal to that, and I go, why in the world do you want to bother with all that stuff? It's easier just to say close the tag. You don't have to close the attributes. So here's a document. It says "Hello World" on it. A simple HTML document, kind of like what we wrote, except for we didn't use the H1 tags. So we have a header system that has predefined. So these tags, by the way, are predefined. You cannot create your own tags. Another misconception some of the new people have is, well, I want to make a person tag. Well, then use XML, because you can create your own tags in XML. You cannot create your own HTML tags. You have to use what's given to you. We have predefined definitions of all these tags. Example, H1. What's H1? It's a certain file, a certain font that's predefined, along with a certain size of the font and a certain spacing that's associated with it. All the H's are put a P at the end, so they have a line return at the end of the line. All of them have various scales of, what are the scales? I don't know. I have to look it up, because bigger numbers or smaller. So it goes from 1 to 9 or something like that. Don't quote me on that. Anyway, that's what the book is for. So if I don't like that, that's what my CSS does. My cascading style sheet, or my style in general, my style is a tag, by the way, as well. Style says, for H1, make it red. Oh, okay, because it's not red, it's black by default. And make it small. you know, or make it italics or something like that. You're not making your own tag. However, you're changing the definition of the tag. That you can do. So you can take any single tag in the library and change the meaning of it. However, when you use the tag in the document, it will change the meaning of it. If the document's using the style, either as a style sheet, or if you put the style in the document somewhere. And I'll talk about where it goes in another lecture. But if you can do the same thing that you do in programming and make really weird mistakes by, you know, a P is now a BR, and a BR is now a P. So then you're writing a document, we don't know that, we're just using, you know, we put something in there, and all of a sudden, oh, what happened? You know, because then the document looks funny. So some of those things are hard to fix. So you want to keep the nature of, if it's a header, make it a header. You know, if it has like 5 spaces underneath it, and every time you use it, there's a problem with it. Then, you know, you're going to make it difficult. So you can make it, although it's made for convenience, you can create styles that make it difficult to format the document the way you want it to look. So anyway, my point is be conservative, yet be useful. And so you'll be creating tags, style tags with setting attributes on certain things. So we have web page design and authoring. The web page design is what a web designer does. It refers to the visual design, creation of the documents that appear on the internet. The web authoring refers to the creation or assembly of the tags. When you author it, you're creating the CSS, you're creating the tags, you're putting the tags in the document. And the design is the graphic art kind of stuff. So we're not doing very much design work in this class, actually. In fact, I'm probably the worst person to teach anything about design. We have classes in web design, and we have classes in HTML and CSS. You're going to learn the mechanics, how to use color contrast correctly. Don't ask me. Because, you know, if I weren't using a preset template, the thing would look like, and this is what I like to say, it's like when you take your website and you put it into a blender, or it looks like a clown threw up all over it or something, because you got flashing this and bold that and red and blue and orange and green and all these different color combinations together, and you look at it and it makes you nauseous sometimes. I've seen websites like that. That's what design does. So you take a web design class and you learn how to make it look good. You take the technical course, which is what you're taking now, and you learn how to make it. I'm not going to teach you how to make it good. So it's going to look like crap, probably. Or maybe not. Some people have natural talent, actually. So that's web design. That's what a web designer does. Subtle but important distinction. So if you get a book that's on web design, it's going to teach you the visual graphic design. A book on XHTML teaches you the basic concepts needed to get started. So this class is on XHTML, HTML, and CSS. W3Cs, hey, we saw this already. Authors begin to find the necessity to write slightly different HTML code for each one of the web browsers in which you are anticipating a web page to be opened in. So W3Cs are going to tell you if you're compatible. So to address the growing need, it was actually for the standard, which we don't actually have a standard. There's no requirement to and this is called website validation. So a lot of people now have this little logo, you know. If you probably you've seen this as a web user. You know, W3C's like a little button. It's a validation. Validated. It's saying, hey, we're validated. Who cares if you're validated? Does it really matter? Is it improving the quality of your product that you're selling? No. It just means somebody went to W3C's and validated it. If you validate it and it passes, then you can put the little logo on the bottom of it. It's kind of like, you know, Intel Inside. Or, you know, oh, we're compliant. Okay, so apparently then it tells you that your web browsers have egos, I guess. I don't know. No, I shouldn't say that. I don't mean that. Take back that comment. Everyone should be validated. Some people need validation, some people don't. So my site's not validated, but that's just me. Alright, in fact, if you run my site through, you get like, I think last time I did it, I had 500 and some errors. It's really bad. But it looks good. I like it. Works just fine for me. So, but I did it for myself. I'd probably get fired if I did it for a company. Yes. All right, so it was established by W3Cs, which is what W3C's Worldwide Web Consortium is what that stands for, because it's easier to make an acronym out of it. 1994 at MIT, oversees development of web technologies and standards. So it doesn't release a version of a particular technology. Instead, it uses a formal recommendation for the technology, which essentially means that the technology is or will be a recognized industry standard. This slide set's about 2 or 3 years old. It's still not a standard. I can probably give you the same slide set 10 years from now, and it's still going to be true. I don't think it's ever going to be standardized. So there's no standardization. How are you going to standardize operating systems? You can't do that. How are you going to standardize web browsers? You can't do that. How are you going to standardize the code that goes into the web browsers? Anyway, web browsers. So we have, here's a little history. Internet Explorer being used for more than 85% of the market. Unfortunately, it's still sort of true. However, it's now decreasing with mobile apps, mobile development, because those don't work in Internet Explorer. So if you want the same look and feel on your desk, you get Firefox. A lot of people have switched to Firefox now. And now we actually get companies, because in the past what ended up happening was people said, well, it must work in all web browsers. Not the case anymore. It can't. So now you get companies that say, hey, you can only use Firefox for this. And even ITU does that, but then they switched. It used to be Firefox, now or Chrome or something. Yeah, the LMS or EMS works with Chrome best. So don't use Internet Explorer for the EMS for this course. Because you get some, actually you'll notice it bring up the EMS. I won't do it because I don't want to waste your time, but the formatting's all wrong. The bottom of the page looks weird, and you can't like put stuff in there. It doesn't look right. In fact, half the features are gone, so which means they're using stuff that's not compatible. So. Netscape Navigator. Oh, we don't even have that anymore. Actually, we do. I think we still have Netscape. Not very popular. Instead, we have Mozilla. So we don't have Mozilla. I mean, Opera still out there. 3 additional browsers. This is kind of dated. Firefox is probably the most popular, with Chrome coming in a close second. Chrome is actually an operating system now too. So. I'm sorry?
It's just faster.
It's faster, yeah. Actually, Internet Explorer is pretty fast too. You know why? It doesn't support a lot. It just filters it out. And we all know about plugins. Just from it being an internet user, you know, that you can supplement the browser's capabilities with plugins and stuff like that as well. So you must test your web page with every browser. No. All right, this slide is old. You don't have to do it for this class. If it works in one browser, it doesn't work in another. When you submit the assignment, say, hey, this only works in Firefox, and I'll understand. So let's talk about HTML versus XHTML. We've already hit some of this stuff, but I want to reiterate some points because it's important. The sloppy code is HTML. The compliant code is XHTML. So web is expanding. We have other user agents. We actually have user agents. That's the word I was looking for earlier and I couldn't remember. No one really uses it. More or less like intelligent agents or agents instead of users. They usually take the word user out of there. You'll hear it like agent. What's an agent? Well, now it's actually called a client now too, actually. Agent. Well, we have agents that interpret, that use content on the internet. So some of the agents have a UI, and the agent that has a UI is the web browser, and it's a client agent. So agents that don't have UIs read the information and find out all the matches, like a search engine. Google, as an example, or Yahoo, that's an agent. It's actually called an intelligent agent, or a search agent. Goes out, finds all the matches, and comes back, and hey, there you go, this is what you want. What did it do? It read all those files. So we all know when we develop our first website, we put it out, we have to put some certain tags in there, the metadata, so that those things can find us. Because those are agents that are reading us. We're going to show up in search results because it's reading our file, and we have those tags in the file that says, hey, we're digital cameras, or something, you know. Oh, okay. So then we can get found in the search results. You can also turn that off, make it so it doesn't work and you won't ever be found in the search result. It comes in handy for universities, for students. You know, do I really want my lectures all over the world? No. I purposely don't put that stuff in there so people don't copy and paste it all over the world. So plagiarism is really bad, and copyright infringement. You know, people put tags in there for free ebooks, and it comes out, oh, free ebook. Is it really free? No, they found a loophole. They found a way of going in. Nothing is free. They found a loophole. You downloaded it from a site with an open door that was found from an agent. That said, and then the website came up and said, here you go. So sometimes you click on it and go, hey, it's not working. Yeah, it's because I shut the door. So, alright, that's a totally different class in itself. So what do we got? Agents that are capable of retrieving HTML and XHTML documents. And I'll tell you about the difference in a few minutes here. So the agent can be a traditional web browser, or a device such as a mobile phone or a PDA, or an application that simply collects and processes and displays it. HTML is not suitable for user agents other than web browsers. So HTML is just used for web browsers. Has evolved in a markup language. Currently the older versions of the browsers allow you to write sloppy HTML code. So I'm calling it sloppy. That's probably not the technical term for it, but it is sloppy. So it's just whatever you want it to write. And then we have the evolution of XHTML. So XML plus HTML gives us XHTML. But when we write HTML code for web browsers, we don't have to put the X in there. The X is the XML component. We don't have to put it in there. We don't have to put any XML tags in there. But we can still write XHTML code if we follow the standard correctly. If we follow the standard correctly, if we wanted to put XML, it would work. If we write sloppy HTML code that's not XHTML compatible, and the W3Cs will tell us that, by if it's strict, transitional, and there's definitions for each one of them that I haven't really defined yet, but long story short, it tells us what we can use that document for in terms of user agents. Sometimes if you have a company and you're looking for, I don't know, to be on market websites or something, and you're building a catalog, you want to be as compatible as possible, because then you can exchange more with other people and you can be part of more stuff. You're not going to be excluded out of some stuff that you might miss out on if you're not compatible. So languages that are based on SGML use a document type definition, a DTD, to define the tags and the attributes. This is what we're talking about. XML and HTML are both derivatives of SGML, as I started this lecture out by telling you. They're following and using what's called a DTD, which is called a document type definition. So we have standard definitions for those document types, which means all parsers can read them the same way. Which is what I'm talking about when I say it's strict, or if it's compliant or compatible. It's abiding by the DTD. So, and the rules of the documents must follow when they include them. So here we go. We have valid and invalid. So I don't actually remember what mine thing said. I think I was valid, actually. When a document conforms to the associated DTD, then it's said to be valid. And then a document that does not conform is associated with the DTD, it's said to be invalid. We want to be valid. Valid means we're in conformity. So we can check whether or not it conforms by calling a validation parser. Remember I said validate.w3c.org. The validate, it's a validation system that's going to tell us whether or not we're valid or invalid. Which is what it's the basis of what it's trying to do. It's tell us, are we and we're valid if we're abiding by the DTD. We're using tags that are defined in the DTD. What does that mean? Well, in the old days, and still in the current modern day, you can put tags in there that the browser reads, but it's not standard, not HTML. There's supplemental tags that you can write. So this is why we have applications right now that work in Firefox that don't work in Internet Explorer. Classic example is the EMS, believe it or not. It's not following the DTD correctly. If it were, it would be compatible in all browsers. It's not, because it has special tags in there, special formatting characteristics and things that are optimized for a certain browser, Firefox or Chrome breed of browsers, essentially, that aren't following the traditional standard. So it doesn't mean it's bad, it just means it's not valid. It's invalid. So because HTML is based on SGML, it requires DTD, and HTML DTD is built directly into web browsers. Okay, so it's the DTD that's causing its deviation from the DTD DTD in the HTML coding that's causing it to be invalid. So when the web browser opens it up, it compares it with the document to the DTD, and then it says, well, you know, interpret it. So think of the parsers taking a set of known rules, the DTD, and applying the rules to the document. So however it applies the rules might be different in different web browsers, but it may also be that the rule's not in the DTD. So if the document is missing any of the required tags, it supplies them. The web browser will actually supply them. It runs the page correctly. So it will fill in the blanks and will make corrections. So as an example, I put the head information for the title. I put it in the body instead of the head. Well, the browser fixed that for me because the browser knows, well, where it was supposed to go. It's just not going to tell me. It's just going to do it for me. So the browser will think for you. So the basics of XML. It stands for Extendable Markup Language. Extendable markup language. Okay, but most people go, well, what in the world do you mean by that? Okay, so remember before I said HTML, you can't write your own tags. You can change the characteristics of existing tags. What are you changing? You're changing the attributes of existing tags. You can't write your own tags. XML, you can write your own tags. And what do you need to write tags for? Usually, 99.9% of the time, it's for data. I want to define what a first name is. I want to define what a last name is. So you write, it's extendable because you can supplement now with your own tags. Write your own tags, usually for data, primarily used for data. Because we have HTML, it's perfectly fine. It works just fine for markup. If you write, and if you attempt to write an HTML tag, browser's not going to know it because it's not part of the DTD. XML extends the DTD to supplement with extensions on the language to provide tags for markup for data. So it's used for creating websites and defining and transitioning data between applications. Like HTML, XML is based on SGML as well. 1.0 is the version of XML achieved, recommended by, from 1998. It's still in the same one at the current time. It still hasn't changed. Why? This is why I say don't fix it till it's broken. It will be fixed, actually, because it is broken. So we're going to get more versions of it. In fact, we probably already have the 2.0 out. I don't know. I don't do very much XML coding, so don't take that as in stone, but it's either 1.0 or 2.0 at this point. It might still be at 2. You can probably easily Google it and find out, but not as high as the 4 to 5.0 on the HTML. So HTML, we're on level 5. When did 5 come out? At the beginning of the year or so? It hasn't been out that long. Actually, it was out a couple years ago, but it has not been widely used until recently. Okay, so what's the difference now, because I'm talking about differences, between HTML4 and HTML5. HTML5 has some new, it's the same existing tags as HTML4, so you can write the same code, it's compatible, but it has new things for video, multimedia, stuff that never existed. We have new stuff now, YouTube videos, audio files, incorporation of different types of browser plugins and stuff. So it has a supplemental, maybe about a handful of tags. Very similar, almost identical to HTML4, plus some multimedia tags. So now you can actually create a tag that embeds a video instead of having to use a browser plugin for it. And when we have an entire lecture that's going to be on video and audio multimedia files, HTML5 is much better. But if you write HTML5 code and you're bringing up in Internet Explorer, or you bring it up in, actually it works in it. Anyway, I'm not going to quote browsers right now, but if you bring it up in certain situations and the browser's not updated enough to support it, no dice. And some browsers right now are partially supporting HTML5, not 100% yet, so you run the risk. So that's why it's been out for a while. Yeah, HTML5's actually been out for a couple years. People are starting to use it. It's getting a lot of buzz right now because there's more web development that's going on that's related to multimedia, and it makes it a cinch. You don't have to include all this other stuff. It makes the writing a lot easier, the HTML code. However, if the browsers don't support it, doesn't matter what you're working with, it's not going to work. So, which is kind of weird. Because the people that come up with HTML are not the browser people, but there's a cross-section of them are. And at the same token, one is like the chicken before the egg kind of thing, you know? The browser's got to support it before people are going to use it. And people are going to use it unless it exists yet, so you're going to make it. And then it sticks around for a while, and then eventually browsers, long story short, is slow. Because, you know, you have to wait for everybody to get on the same page. But it is actually currently the trend right now, is everyone get on the same page. Right, it makes HTML5. So we'll look at that after we get done with HTML4. Which is just another set of tags. So in XML, you refer to tag sets as an element. So we have elements instead of tags. We create an element. In fact, the word is element. You can create elements like first name, last name. So the tag pair and the data is contained as an element. All the elements have an opening and a closing tag, like first name, last name, first name, opening and closing. And the data contained within the element's opening and closing tag is actually called the content. Because it's content, because it's data, not text. So we have a declaration that we can use. So XML documents should begin with XML declaration. So remember when I put HTML up there? Well, you can put XML up there at the top. Specifically, but you have to actually specify XML 1.0, 2.0, whatever it is you're using. Don't quote me on the 2.0. I'm half thinking it's out, but it's not in widespread use yet. So. No requirement to include an XML declaration because currently only one version of XML exists, which is version 1.0. You can actually leave it out. So. And this slide set is kind of old, which is why I'm questioning that. I'll find out for next week. How's that? I'll tell you next week. I have to research that a little bit. But I know you can write documents without the tag and it works just fine still. So. If it's out, it might just be research version. So, because there's really nothing you have to change on it, nothing that could be updated. So, the encoding attribute of the XML declaration designates the language used by the XML document. It's good practice to include it just in case there's another version that comes out. Then we know which version you're looking at. So, and in parsing an XML document, when a document adheres, then we say the rule set is well formed. So the well-formed is another, it's kind of like saying validated or invalid, valid or invalid, transitional, well-formed, all these words that the W3C has decided to label. So this is the well-formed means it's complying. You use a program called a parser to check whether the XML document is well-formed. There's two types, non-validating and validating. So it could be valid but invalid and well-formed. So when you create your parser, who looks at XML code? Your web browser doesn't. Although you can show the XML code, which is the other thing. Before, when I get my 11, what time is it? 11 what? Oh, it is? Okay, so I only have 5 minutes left? Okay, this is actually a good spot because I'm starting to get hungry. I was going to show you something actually interesting. I'll do it now. Actually, so can you tell, okay, the other TA role is tell me where I stopped each week. So, I don't know what slide number this is because I moved it over. It is 36? 46. Oh yeah, it's on the bottom. Slide number 46. Okay. So we can close this out here. And what I was going to show you was some interesting things about your browser. The commands are a little bit different. I'll do this in a Windows system, and I'll do this in Internet Explorer because it has menu options for it. There's command, there's like on a MacBook and on Firefox. I don't remember what it is, but it's like Control or Command C or something, and it just shows the code. I'll look that up for you. I actually have it. I just haven't done it in a long time. But if I have this HTML document out here, I can go over here and I can say View Source. And it actually opens up my notepad window, and it shows me what the source of the document is. You can see I have some weird characters in there because I took this from a Mac system and I copied it over to a Windows system. No biggie. The browser just ignores it. So what you can do is, as an example here, www.google.com. You know, as you're just starting out, if you've never taken an HTML course before and you want to say, well, what in the world do these things look like? You know, it's actually kind of not a bad experiment to come over and just say, view the source. And sometimes you'll see, oh, look at that. It does have document type up here, and it does specify out, and this is, You know, oh, look at that. It's and then you can tell what version of HTML, what character numbering set. It will give you the source of the document. What are you reading is what the browser is reading. So the first thing most people come to people's minds is, well, you're giving away the source code. Not really. HTML, this is another point I wanted to make, is for client-side data, not data, but presentation, document is what I was looking for, presentation. So this is client-side. Later in the course we'll look at the differences between client and server-side. So the browser works with client-side technologies. Client-side includes JavaScript. All runs on the client's computer. The only thing that the client actually sees is what is given to the client on the client's computer. So in here there might be a script. This document here doesn't really, it's kind of short actually if you think about it. This is the entire Google website here. You could cut and paste this to save it locally, load it on your own computer, change it around, look at it. But some of the functionality is going to be gone because this is probably going to be calling server-side scripts, which it is actually. And a server-side script is housed on the server that this is connecting to. And when you click on, you know, here we go back here. When you click on this button here, Google, you do a search or whatever, it's running it on the server, it's not running it on the client. So this class is going to focus on the client-side aspect of it. If you take client-server on the internet, or if you take some of the other classes, and you see, well, the differences are safety, protection of the document code, security if you're connecting to a database. So some things you're going to want to do on the client. Some things you're not going to want to do on the client. You're going to do that on the server because you don't want to give out the passwords to your database and stuff like that. So part of the process of developing this is coming up with the HTML interface. This is pretty simple. This is not too much HTML code. However, you've got scripts in here, and the scripts are written supplemental to the HTML code, and they're mixed in with HTML code. And some of them are running on the client, some of them are running on the server. Form validation that we'll look at later on with forms, so we'll get to probably maybe as far as next week, who knows. We'll be running scripts because you can't really do anything after the presentation of the information. So, and your scripts, you can run them on the client, you can run them on the server, it doesn't really matter. It's basically on the functionality. So, all right, we did enough. It's 11:45. Perfect. So we're done for today, and unless we have any questions or anything, no. All right, I'm going to end this video. So the video is actually going to be put up on bhacker.com. I haven't done it yet. So actually, I'm just going to save it, upload it, change my HTML code to add a link. So maybe I'll have you guys do it later. I don't know. Just kidding. All right, so we're done for today. I'll tell you next week, I guess, where the links are. I'll show it to you. So.